Rancher discovers hidden truth. Starving girl returns his wife's locket with 4 touching words. The thunder roared like a warning as Jake Thompson stared blankly at the rolling hills of his ranch, the spots of pasture soaked, his heart heavier still. The family ranch had been his wife's joy, a place where laughter rang out amid the clatter of hooves on dirt. Now shadows danced in their kitchen, flickering in tandem with the storm, mirroring the depths of his loneliness. 3 years, and the only sound was the echo of memories, the ghost of her laughter still lingering, refusing to fade with time. Then came the desperate knock on the door. Jake's daughter Lily screamed from the other room, her voice tinged with panic amid the raging storm. Dropping his whiskey glass, Jake rushed to see what had her frazzled, his gut twisting with a sensation he'd come to dread after his wife's passing, the fear of losing someone else he loved. When he opened the door, a soaked figure crumpled at his feet. The girl was emaciated, skin stretched thin over bones, eyes wide yet dim with despair. She clutched a tarnished locket, his wife's locket, the one he thought lost in the shadows of their grief. She introduced herself as Ava, a street child of 12, with a story that twisted like the wind outside. Economic collapse had stripped her life of security and stability, leaving her adrift. Jake's heart clenched. Was this a sign? Could they truly help this child? His mind raced. Just when he thought their world couldn't get darker, now they had an outsider in their home. He wanted to extend a hand, but feared for Lily's well-being. With his daughter already feeling abandoned by her father's unending grief, wouldn't Ava simply amplify the void? He was trapped. The ranch felt like a prison of despair, the responsibilities weighing on him like a pressure cooker slowly reaching its limit. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As days passed, Ava settled into the rhythm of their ranch. Amazingly, she and Lily began to bond over a shared frustration of hardship, 2 girls navigating a world that seemed hell-bent on crushing them. Yet, Jake felt the walls of their sanctuary closing in. He watched them grow closer, while an internal storm brewed within him. Did he have a right to bring this girl into their lives? Was it selfish to wish for companionship when it might just deepen Lily's scars? One evening, Ava picked up an old photo album from the shelf. Their laughter rang out brightly, but when Ava's finger brushed across a familiar face, a jolt ripped through Jake. A family connection he never anticipated lurked within the pages. The girl who had stumbled into their lives wasn't just a random stranger. This was a tie back to his past, a thread he thought buried forever. Revelations coursed through him like ice. How could he balance the fragile bonds they were forming with the heavy history that threatened to destroy it all? The storm rumbled outside, matching his spiraling thoughts. Would he expose the truth, risk breaking his daughter's heart, or protect Ava from a history fraught with pain? As rain streamed down the windows like the weight of his dilemma, he stared into Ava's hopeful eyes. She whispered 4 words that slashed through his turmoil. "You're not alone anymore." In that moment of clarity, he realized he couldn't just shield them from pain. Life had further tests in store, and he could feel a reckoning brewing on the horizon. Would he embrace the unexpected family he had found, or retreat into a past that could consume them all? The next morning arrived with reluctant light creeping through the storm clouds. Jake stood by the kitchen table, the sun's hesitant rays casting false hope against the drab wooden surfaces. He felt like a ghost haunting his own home, trapped between the weight of sorrow and the emergence of something unrecognizable. Ava's presence was an anomaly, yet it stirred emotions long thought dormant. As breakfast sizzled in the skillet, Jake's attention drifted toward the girls. Lily had tied a colorful ribbon in her hair, chasing away the dark shadows that had been trailing her since her mother's passing. It was heartwarming, yet a knot formed in Jake's stomach. Was this resurrection of his daughter's spirit merely temporary? Would Ava be a positive influence, or would she serve as a constant reminder of the chaos they faced in the world outside their ranch? "Papa, can we go help Ava with the animals today? She says she knows a lot about horses," Lily chirped, her enthusiasm brightening the heart of their somber household. Jake's heart sank at the notion of allowing things to settle too quickly. He couldn't help but think of the different worlds they came from, his protective instinct feeding a separate worry. Who exactly was Ava, and what secrets did she carry with her? "Sure, let's get to it," he replied, grasping his hesitation and setting it aside. After all, the world they faced together was still a thing of dreams, one in which fear would have to give way to trust, if not for him, then for Lily. And somewhere within him, Jake felt a stirring of determination. Perhaps this was the moment to reshape not just for them, but for himself as well. Out in the barn, laughter echoed as the girls divided chores. Ava's hands deftly moving among the animals, Lily's giggles punctuating the air. Watching them brought forth a bittersweet wave of pride, yet with it came a burning doubt. He had opened their home, but was he truly ready for the impact this girl would have on their lives? "Hey, you all right?" a voice startled him. It was Ava, pulling him back from his turbulent thoughts. Her brow furrowed slightly in concern. There was a singular sincerity in her gaze, and suddenly Jake wondered how much of her own burdens she bore. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, intending to brush her off, but found himself unable to do so. Instead, words began pouring out. "You know, this ranch was a different place when my wife was alive. I struggle sometimes letting people in again." Ava's expression shifted, the understanding unspoken but palpable. "You have to find hope," she said simply, the wisdom of her childhood reflected in her earnestness. "You have to try." Jake absorbed her words, hints of resolve washing over him like warm sunlight. Finding hope felt less like an abstract concept and more like something tangible, a tool he could wield. Maybe, in embracing this child and her spirit, he could resurrect other parts of himself. That night, after the girls fell asleep, Jake pored over the family photo album they had unearthed earlier. The faded images glowed in the dim light, a testament to the happiness he once cherished. As he flipped through the pages, a bold thought coalesced in the dim silence. Perhaps confronting the truth of Ava's heritage might not fracture their world. It had the potential to weave new connections into their tapestry of life. He felt a sense of urgency surging within him. The time had come to explore who Ava was, truly meant to be in this strange yet welcoming space. Tomorrow would be the day when he had to face the truths that had been unearthed, confront the ties of the past, and dive headfirst into the responsibilities of hope. Tomorrow he would uncover Ava's story, a revelation that would ultimately tighten or shatter the bond between them. But tonight, nestled within a dichotomy of past sorrows and future possibilities, Jake surrendered himself to an uncertain tomorrow. As he drifted into uneasy sleep, a lone whisper echoed in his mind, "You're not alone anymore." The dawn brought an invigorating chill to the air, washing over Jake as he prepared to face the day ahead. There was an electric tension pulsating in his chest. The resolve he had felt the night before coalesced into something more concrete. Today meant stepping beyond the shadows of yesterday and diving headfirst into Ava's story, a necessary confrontation with the emotions swelling inside him. Outside, sunlight bathed the ranch in gold, illuminating the sweat-stained barn walls and the dirt paths where the girls would soon play. He took a deep breath, drawing in the crispness that surrounded him. This was his sanctuary, yet its familiarity felt strangely foreign in the light of an impending revelation. "Lily, Ava," he called, moving toward the barn. The sound of hoofbeats echoed as he entered, both girls already busy brushing the horses. The sight sparked a flicker of joy, tempered by the weight of what he needed to unveil. He approached them. The excitement of the moment would only heighten the stakes of what was to come. "Hey, how about a ride today?" he suggested, masking his anxiety with a casual tone. The girls cheered. In that instance, Jake felt the last vestige of hesitation drain away. They rounded up the horses, their laughter filling the space, weaving a thread of warmth amid his swirling thoughts. Once mounted, Jake led the girls into the expansive fields beyond the barn. As fresh grass brushed against their boots and the horses' spirits soared high, a layer of camaraderie settled over the trio. But beneath the light chatter, Jake's mind worked relentlessly, dissecting every facet of their history together, mulling the unspoken connection they shared, wrapped tightly around the overwhelming truth of Ava's existence. A break in the ride took them to a secluded area where the horses grazed. Jake dismounted, seeking a moment to gather his thoughts while the girls continued to observe their surroundings. His heart raced as Ava approached him, sensing perhaps that something monumental lay just behind the veil of their burgeoning friendship. "Jake, can I ask you something?" she ventured, her tone serious, the innocence fading as she held her gaze steady. The facade he had carefully constructed began to crack. Was it time? A question echoed in his mind. Could he truly reveal the heavier truths weighing upon them, the secrets lurking in the shadows of their intertwined lives? "Sure, Ava," he replied, squaring his shoulders. "What do you want to know?" "Why did the locket mean so much to you?" Her eyes locked on his with a penetrating intensity. "I've seen you look at it before. It seems special." The air around him thickened, memories rushing back. Moments shared with his late wife, the locket an anchoring piece of their love. He exhaled, contemplating how to piece together the tattered fragments of his past, while offering transparency to this child who had unknowingly stepped into his life, bringing both uncertainty and an unexpected glimmer of hope. "It belonged to my wife," he admitted cautiously. "She wore it every day. It's a reminder of who she was and how much I loved her." Ava's brow furrowed in pity, but her eyes brightened with understanding. "You miss her, don't you?" The question was a dagger, cutting deep into Jake's carefully constructed walls. "Every day," he confessed, a tremor in his voice palpable. "But it's not just about loss anymore. You being here, it brings new complexities." Ava's small frame radiated assurance, a wisdom that belied her age. "We can be a family," she offered softly, the innocent hope in her statement igniting something in Jake. "Let's just take it one step at a time, okay?" he replied, the weight of his words bearing the gravitas of the truth he was beginning to understand. Perhaps Ava had more to teach him about moving forward than he realized. As he turned to Lily, who had been quietly listening, he felt the weight of their journey pressing against him with newfound urgency. It was not only Ava who carried secrets. He had to confront his own desires for both connection and independence. They resumed their ride, the horizon open and inviting as Jake plotted their path forward. Yet as they ventured deeper into the expansive land, a shadow of regret loomed, a lingering fear that this very bond might be tested in ways he couldn't foresee. But Jake steeled himself. He would not shy away from the truth. The time for clarity was near, but a shiver of doubt over what Ava could yet reveal sent jolts through his spine. As they reached the edge of a gentle slope, something flickered in the distance. It was more than a mere sight. It was a harbinger of chaos, a sign that whatever connection they forged would soon be called to the ultimate test. Jake's heart raced as they approached the hill, an inexplicable anxiety taking hold. Was this the moment their fragile equilibrium would shatter? He steeled his resolve. The truth was beckoning like a wild storm, and he needed to confront whatever awaited them at the top. As they crested the hill, the anticipation coiled tighter within Jake, each heartbeat echoing his fears. The landscape opened up like a boundless canvas, revealing a distant figure silhouetted against the azure sky. A young girl, her hair catching the sun like threads of gold. She stood by a fence, looking back at them, her expression inscrutable. "Who is that?" Lily asked, breaking the fragile silence that had cocooned them. "I don't know," Jake responded, the knot in his stomach tightening further. "But something feels off." The trio approached with caution, curiosity battling dread. The closer they came, Jake's growing unease morphed into palpable anxiety. He felt Ava's hand grasping for his, an instinctual need for reassurance. Keeping his voice steady was a challenge as they closed the distance, his focus unwavering on the mysterious girl. "Hey there," he called out, forcing a smile, though questions churned relentlessly in his mind. When she turned, his heart skipped. The resemblance was striking. This girl had features that mirrored his wife in subtle yet profound ways, stirring memories both cherished and painful. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice hinting at innocence laced with something deeper, an unspoken knowledge. "Actually, we were wondering who you are," Jake managed, maintaining eye contact. The initial warmth in her eyes began to flicker, replaced by a guarded expression as if he had just crossed an invisible line. "I'm just a traveler," she replied, her gaze darting away as if seeking refuge in the landscape. "But I found something that belongs to you." From behind her back, she produced the very locket that Jake had clutched so tightly for years. Time evaporated as he watched it glint in the sunlight. The piece of jewelry that had tied him to his past suddenly cradled in the hands of a stranger. "Where did you get this?" His voice cracked, the weight of past grief colliding with an overwhelming sense of urgency. This confrontation was unlike anything he had ever imagined. "I found it in the grass," she replied, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "When I was walking with my sister. We've seen the ranch from afar." His breath quickened. Memories flooded back. His wife's last moments, the locket swinging from her neck as she had whispered her final words of love. "Did you speak to her?" he pressed, his chest tightening with hope and dread. "No," the girl said, shaking her head. "But I think she wanted you to have it back." Jake was gripped by a whirlwind of emotions. Questions clamored for attention. How had this young girl come to possess the locket? What other secrets lay buried within the depths of her story that mirrored his own? As he reached for the locket, hesitation pricked at him, the paradox of loss and connection weighing heavily. What new chapter of his life was opening with this moment? His fingers brushed the cool metal, and he felt a sudden surge of clarity. "I can't take it back without understanding," Jake said, his voice steadied by conviction. "What else do you know? Who are you really?" The girl looked sharply at him, recognition igniting a flurry of emotions across her face. "You need to know what happened. You need to know who I am." Jake felt the ground beneath him shift. This revelation was no longer just about the locket. It was about the very threads that linked their lives, unraveling truths he was not prepared to face. The breeze picked up, rustling through the tall grass, echoing the tumult within him, but he stood firm, determined to extract the depth of her knowledge and the hidden connections that intertwined their fates. As the truth began to unfurl, Jake realized the confrontation was only beginning. What lay ahead was a labyrinth of revelation, a twisting pathway that could lead to healing or further heartache. "Tell me," he urged, desperation lacing his demand. "It's time to face whatever's been hidden." And as the words left his lips, an unseen horizon loomed ahead, one that held the promise of both the answers he craved and the shadows that threatened to engulf him once more. The girl hesitated, her fingers tightening around the locket, as if it were a fragile bird. Jake's heart raced, sensing she was balancing on the edge of a precipice where her truth teetered. "What do you mean, I need to know who you are?" His voice was firmer than he felt, masking the storm brewing inside him. "I can't just tell you. You need to remember." Her eyes glinted with knowing, as though she possessed pieces of a puzzle that had long been discarded. Jake's mind spiraled with doubt. Could this girl, so young and seemingly innocent, hold fragments of his past that he had spent years trying to piece together? He had spent sleepless nights wrestling with memories of his wife, but now those memories flickered like a reflection on water, beautiful yet elusive. "Remember?" he echoed, confusion gnawing at him. "I barely hold on to anything." The air around them charged, palpable with unspoken truths. He felt Ava's hand squeeze his tighter and turned to see her reflection, a mix of encouragement and uncertainty. Would Jake delve into painful depths to retrieve parts of himself he had buried? "Yes," the girl urged gently. "Think about her. Think about how she loved you." He drew a shaky breath, eyes narrowing on the locket. She wore this everywhere. It was... The words caught, strangled by grief. The memory of soft laughter, the way his wife had tucked away the locket as she danced in the kitchen, flooded him. It was the last piece of her before... The finality of that moment cut him open. The ache of loss surged anew. She believed in things beyond this world, in connections and messages. The girl's voice wove through his memories, pulling at his heartstrings. "You should know. She was searching for something. And you, too. You've lost her, but you've lost yourself in the process." "I lost her because I didn't see." His gut twisted, realizing the delicate web of regret he had woven. He had allowed the tragedy to eclipse his own existence, his purpose dulled into despondency. The girl's gaze lingered on him, a soft intensity urging him to confront his own buried truths. "Find your shape again," she whispered. "You can't keep living like this." As if struck by lightning, Jake felt a spark igniting deep within him, a flame that defied fear. Could he reconstruct his identity from the shards of pain? With every passing second beside the girl, the possibility of redemption surfaced. He could turn this encounter into more than just storytelling. It could be his rebirth, a breaking away from the cycle of sorrow. "What do I need to remember?" he pushed forward, desperation pouring through the cracks of his voice. "How do I do it?" "Think about her love, Jake. Your past shapes your present, but it doesn't dictate your future." Each word resonated as she spoke, shimmering with wisdom that belied her years. "Embrace what you've lost, but don't let it define you." Her words acted as a lifeline, prompting him to question everything he had been running from. The shadows that loomed, reminders of rejection, bitter grief, self-doubt, all felt lighter suddenly, as if a waiting sun threatened to seep through the clouds. But there was still a deeper mystery at play. How knowledgeable was this girl? Why had she come to him? What other connections did she hold? he hesitated, grappling with the weight of discovery he still clung to. "We're linked, aren't we? This wasn't a coincidence." Her expression shifted, revealing a flicker of something unguarded, almost fearful. "Yes, and you need to decide how to embrace that." The tension in Jake's chest pulsed as clarity washed over him. This was not merely about finding closure for the past. It was about empowerment in the present, a daring step toward the future. "Then show me," he urged, emboldened by his decision. "Show me the truth about my life and how I can reclaim it." The wind picked up, stirring around them like a celestial whisper. As the girl's expression transitioned from fear to determination. "I'll help you uncover it, but only if you're willing to walk through the fire of your memories." Jake felt the stakes heighten, an inexorable pull drawing him toward the emerging light of his future. There was no turning back. He must confront the fire within him. As shadows loomed ahead, a new revelation brewed, a truth he had long suppressed. And just beyond that golden horizon, a realization throbbed deep within him. The journey to reclaim himself was starting now, but at what cost? The air shimmered with anticipation, a tension that felt almost electric as Jake locked eyes with the girl. Ava, her name now etched within his mind, was more than a mere harbinger of memories. She was a guide, a reminder of the soul he had abandoned. The wind swirled around them, carrying with it the weight of unspoken revelations, urging him to peel back the layers of his self-imposed isolation. "Walk through the fire," he muttered under his breath, testing the sounds of those words on his lips. If reclaiming his past required enduring a tempest of emotion, he would do it. The loss of his wife had woven itself so deeply within him that to disentangle it felt insurmountable. Yet, standing in that moment, he sensed strength shifting within the ashes of his grief. "Jake," Ava's voice broke through his thoughts, steadying his spiraling mind. "If we are to explore this together, I need you to understand something vital. Facing the memories won't be easy. Some will hurt, but they deserve respect. You must let them teach you." He swallowed hard, uncertainty quaking within him. Could he truly navigate the tumultuous landscape of his past? Years had dulled him, hardened his heart like an unyielding stone. But within the hollow ache where hope had once resided, a flicker ignited. "I'm ready to feel again," he asserted, an unfamiliar determination threading through his words. With a nod, Ava took a step back, her hand loosening from his grasp but not letting go entirely. "Let's begin at the beginning. I remember the day we met," he began, hesitantly, his voice low but gradually gaining strength. "It was summer, the sun blazed, and she wore that blue sundress, her laughter ringing like music." He paused, feeling the ghost of those moments flood through him, bittersweet yet comforting. "We were young and in love. Good." "Hold on to that feeling," she encouraged, her eyes shimmering with profound empathy. "What was it about her that captivated you?" Jake closed his eyes, the memory unfurling like a flower in spring. Her spirit. She saw the beauty in everything, even the mundane. She made me want to be better. His heart constricted as he recalled her gentle encouragement, the way she'd nudged him to dream bigger, push harder against the confines he had built around himself. But then, the weight of the impending sorrow gripped him. Then life happened. Ava filled in the silence gently, as if coaxing him to view the past with a loving lens rather than one mired in pain. "But remember, just because life is hard doesn't mean you've lost everything. What did she want for you?" Her question pierced through his despair, redirecting the narrative. "To embrace my dreams," he answered, the truth dawning upon him like the morning sun. "She always believed in a greater purpose for me, that I could find fulfillment beyond this ranch." An unexpected rush surged forth, the prospect of a future untainted by tragedy starting to resonate. As Jake's internal landscape shifted, he felt an old piece of himself start to resurface. The man who had given up on music, who let his aspirations fade. "I let despair define me," he confessed sheepishly, feeling exposed in his vulnerability. "But if she believed in my potential, maybe I can too." "Exactly," Ava replied, the warmth in her voice wrapping around him. "Transformation starts with acknowledging what you've lost, while discovering how to cultivate new beginnings. Mourn your wife, but allow her memory to spur your rebirth, not your demise." Jake exhaled deeply, each breath igniting the flicker of hope. The girl stood before him, a beacon illuminating his path. He was ready to wrestle with the remnants of his past, not as an enemy combatant, but as a curious explorer. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced like specters, a nagging realization enveloped him. Was he prepared to confront all that his journey would bring? The painful truths and sacrifices he'd have to face? "Can I truly do this?" he wondered aloud, apprehension threading through his conviction. Ava stepped back slightly, her gaze unwavering. "Only you can answer that," she said, leaving an open door that dared him to walk through. The horizon hinted at untold possibilities, but standing before her felt much like standing on a precipice again. Would he leap into the unknown, trusting that he would find his wings? With heart and mind aligned, Jake took a tentative step towards his past, prepared to reclaim not just memories, but himself. But would the pain of reconnection prove to be his salvation or another burden to bear? The answer awaited just beyond the threshold, a truth cloaked in shadows, daring him to face the flame.
The evening air was thick, laden with the remnants of remembrance, as Jake inhaled deeply, preparing himself to cross the threshold Ava had so delicately outlined. "The past is not an adversary," he murmured, drawing on the simmering resolve that coursed through him. Each step felt like an echo, reverberating through the chambers of his heart, reigniting long-dormant dreams and aspirations that had slipped from his grasp. Ava remained a constant presence, her eyes searching his face for signs of readiness. "Let's delve deeper, Jake. Can you recall your last moments together before?" she trailed off, the weight of their shared understanding pressing heavily in the air. Swallowing back the surge of emotions that threatened to engulf him, he nodded. "The accident," he stated flatly, though the word felt jagged against his tongue. "We were laughing, planning a future, and just like that, it was gone." The ache of loss swelled within him again, threatening to overwhelm the flickers of newfound hope. "But in that joy, remember, what were you dreaming of in that moment?" Ava probed gently, steering him toward the raw shards of his past. He closed his eyes, casting his mind back to the evening just before everything changed. "We wanted to travel, maybe see the coast, or even go out west. I had an old guitar, and I always thought I'd write a song worthy of her laughter," he confessed, feeling a tear slip unchecked down his cheek. The memory felt vivid, yet anchored in sadness. "That's beautiful," she encouraged, her voice like a balm. "What did you do with that guitar when she was gone?" Jake hesitated, the question tugging at another layer of himself that he had long buried beneath the debris of sorrow. "I put it away. I didn't want to hear it. Music felt too much like magic, our magic." His shoulders slumped, an unsettling heartache clawing at his resolve. "Jake," Ava spoke with conviction, her gaze sharp yet full of compassion. "That magic, those emotions, were a part of your love story. Hiding from them doesn't honor her. It is time to reclaim not just your memories, but your music." The weight of her words clung to him, dragging him through a cathartic struggle between despondency and empowerment. The idea of picking up his guitar, of stringing words and melodies together, ignited something within him. But fear loomed large. What if the notes emerged strangled and choked? What if, after all this time, he had lost the ability to create? "Can I even face that?" he questioned, internal conflict brewing, battling against the burgeoning flicker of determination. "Do you want to?" Ava redirected, an insistent challenge in her tone. "Music has a way of voicing our innermost turmoil, Jake. It can heal, inspire, and reconnect you to her in ways beyond memory." He opened his eyes, his heart racing at the thought. This was not merely about music, it was about grounding himself in the world he had once known.
Maybe she is still here, in the chords, in the words, he realized with dawning clarity. Maybe I've made a mistake hiding from the very thing that could elevate me. "Then let's face that fear together," Ava responded, her eyes brightening with resolve. "Open the guitar case, dust off the strings, start with a single chord." Jake took a slow, steadying breath. The distance between him and that long dormant dream felt daunting, yet the shadows of doubt began to recede as he embraced the flicker of courage igniting within. Perhaps this was the challenge he needed, not just to face the past, but to reclaim his future. He turned toward the door leading to the small room where he had stowed the guitar, hesitating only for a moment. The past whispered desperately, clinging to him, but the pull of what lay ahead, the chance to remember in a way that celebrated living, was stronger. Ava nodded in encouragement, a guardian of this metamorphosis. Just as he reached for the doorknob, a sudden noise outside caught his attention. A familiar sound that echoed from the depths of his memories. The joyful plucking of a guitar string. Almost instinctively, he turned toward Ava, his brows furrowing as confusion bubbled in his chest. Was someone else here? "What is that?" he questioned, his voice tight with nervous energy, as anticipation turned to trepidation. "Only the universe answering your call," Ava replied, but the uncertainty lurking in her eyes suggested a different story. Standing on the precipice of rediscovery, Jake felt the gravity of impending revelations whispering from just beyond the door. The journey he had dared to embark upon now held layers he had not anticipated. And with each pulse of curiosity, he could sense that the guitar strings might not be the only strings being plucked in this new chapter of his life. A decision loomed. Would he open the door to face new truths, or retreat back to the safety of his learned solitude? The moment felt charged with unseen possibilities, hanging like a note waiting to resolve. In that pregnant pause, the air shimmered once more, and Jake steeled himself for what lay ahead. Jake's heart raced as he wrestled with the decision that loomed before him. He had spent so long avoiding the very essence of his past that standing here, on the brink of clarity, felt foreign yet exhilarating. The ghostly echoes of his guitar mingled with the present, as if the universe were urging him to confront his fate. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open, revealing the small room enveloped in dust and memories. Sunlight poured through a single window, illuminating the old guitar case propped in the corner, its surface coated with a fine layer of neglect. A feeling of warmth washed over him, temporarily masking the chill of doubt. He crossed the threshold, his resolve solidifying with each step toward the case. The air tasted of old wood and lost dreams, a tangible representation of everything he had hidden away. As he knelt down and slowly lifted the case's lid, the creak of the hinges resonated like an awakening. His gaze fell on the guitar, its polished surface catching the light. The strings were taut, as if longing for the touch of a hand, yearning to share the silenced tunes of his heart.
With a trembling hand, he lightly brushed the instrument, recalling the moments spent playing under the moonlight, lost in harmonious laughter and shared dreams. "You were waiting for me," he whispered, surprised to feel tears forming again. It was a mix of grief and longing, as if the guitar had retained the emotional fingerprints of the times he had cherished. Ava stepped inside, her presence grounding him. "Do you feel it?" she inquired softly, closing the door behind her with a gentle thud that echoed through the quiet room. "It's like I'm reconnecting with a piece of myself that I thought was lost," he confessed, eyeing the instrument with a blend of reverence and fear. The possibility of creating music again both thrilled and terrified him. "Then let's start with something small," she encouraged, hovering nearby. "Just one chord, one moment of magic." Jake lifted the guitar carefully, handling it with a mix of affection and trepidation. He felt the weight of the instrument, its history entwined with his own. He let his fingers rest on the strings, feeling the vibration beneath his touch, a heartbeat that had been forgotten but was now stirring awake. He closed his eyes, letting his mind wander to the memories, until he finally tuned in to the resonance of the chord. Taking a breath, he pressed down and strummed. The sound broke the silence, echoing through the walls, filled with longing and the sweetness of unplayed melodies. The moment the note rang out, he was thrust back to a time when joy transcended sorrow. He envisioned her laughter and light, lived in the vivid chords of their shared dreams. The guitar, once a token of pain, now pulsed with potential. Reclamation was underfoot. But the notes were shaky, the chords hesitant. He could sense the tension of half-formed ideas gnawing at his resolve. "Fear not the imperfections," Ava reminded him gently, observing his struggle. "Even in chaos, music finds its form. It's the imperfections that make it real." Jake swallowed hard, anger surging within him, directed not at Ava, but at his own hesitations. "But what if I fail? What if I can't capture any of it?" The doubt crashed over him like a wave, threatening to drown his newfound courage. "Failure is just a fleeting moment," she replied firmly. "What matters is your willingness to try." Their eyes locked, the weight of understanding passing between them. It was as though she saw beyond his uncertainty, recognizing the potential growth that lay buried beneath the ashes of his grief. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake picked up the tempo, strumming again, this time with a bit more confidence. Each note he played began to fill the room, weaving through memories and fragments of hope. A new chord emerged, richer than before, richer than just nostalgia. It was a declaration, an embrace of the past while simultaneously stepping into a future where he could share her laughter once more. But then, just as he felt himself easing into the rhythm, the sounds outside shifted abruptly. The retreat of playful strumming now disrupted by urgent footsteps. "Jake!" Ava exclaimed as the door swung abruptly open. A figure appeared in the frame, breathless and wide-eyed. "You need to come quickly. There's someone here to see you, someone you didn't expect." Caught between the echoes of his music and a sudden intrusion, Jake's heart plummeted. What revelation awaited him at that threshold? Would it be a new connection, or yet another reminder of the past he was trying to reconcile? The air hung heavily, thick with uncertainty and promise, as Jake faced the unexpected turn in his journey. He had opened the door to music, but now the universe seemed to open another one right before him. Jake's mind spiraled in a vortex of confusion as he stood before the sudden intruder. His fingers still tingled with the warmth of the guitar's strings, but the moment felt diminished in the face of this unexpected visitor. The figure framed in the doorway carried an air of urgency that felt at odds with the delicate repairs he was trying to make within himself. "Who is it?" he managed to ask, his voice barely rising above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile moment he had just experienced. The figure stepped forward, and as they entered the room, recognition seeped in like sunlight through darkened clouds. It was Mark, an old friend from his hometown, one he had not seen in years. The familiar contours of Mark's rugged face wore an expression somewhere between concern and something heavier, as if he carried news that might tip the balance of Jake's already fragile world. "Jake," Mark said, his voice edged with urgency, "we need to talk. It's important." Invading images of the past flickered through Jake's mind. Laughter, youthful irresponsibility, and the distant shadows of dreams unfulfilled swirled around him. Those memories were dangerously intertwined with an avoidance he'd cultivated, a skillful retreat from the old life he had left behind. "What's happened?" Jake's voice trembled at the edges, each word weighted with a mixture of anticipation and dread. "It's about Sarah. Mark hesitated, visibly steeling himself against the tide of emotion. "You need to know she's still out there, and things aren't like you think." The air crackled with a sudden influx of dread and memories he thought he had buried. Sarah, his late wife, had been the heart of his past, a treasure he couldn't bear to look at until now, until the guitar began to unearth his buried grief. Ava stepped forward, instinctively sensing Jake's turmoil.
"What do you mean, Mark?" she pressed, her vulnerability mingling with her unwavering resolve to support Jake. This wasn't just his battle anymore. They were entwined in unforeseen complexities. "It's complicated," Mark finally said, running a hand through his hair. "But she wanted you to have this." He reached into his pocket and drew out a small object, shining with a familiar luster. Sarah's locket. As Mark opened it, the small image inside revealed a photograph of Jake and Sarah, their smiles frozen in a moment of shared joy, encapsulated forever in time. The bitter pang of nostalgia surged through him like an electric shock. This wasn't just an object. It was a doorway to the emotions he had thought he had locked away. 4 simple words escaped Mark's lips, hanging in the air with the weight of lost years. "She never stopped loving you." Jake staggered back, as though struck by an unseen force. The reality of those words reverberated through him, dismantling the defenses he had carefully constructed against pain. Memories of laughter and shared ambitions crashed over him like waves, and suddenly the chaos within him was a tempest of regret and longing for resolution. In that moment, everything shifted. The very foundation he had built around his grief now threatened to crumble, alongside the walls separating him from confronting his past. Would he embrace the possibility that Sarah's love hadn't vanished into oblivion? "What does this change?" he asked, his voice low and strained, struggling to carve out a path forward through the emotional fog. "It means you have the chance to find closure," Mark replied, his gaze steadying. "You owe it to her and to yourself." Ava's eyes widened, her decision distilled from resolve and intent. "Jake, maybe this is your opportunity to not only reconnect with your music, but to revisit a love story unfinished." Jake felt the overwhelming weight of expectation, an intricate balance between honoring the love he lost and reconciling what remained within him. Could he bear to face the past with music as his guide? To take the first step into the unknown that lay ahead? As uncertainty and longing wrestled within him, one thing became clear. He stood at the edge of a decision that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. In that charged silence, Jake's gaze anchored on the path ahead, contemplating the depth of love lost and the music waiting to be made. Perhaps Just perhaps, the unexpected return of the locket held the key to a new chapter in his life and music. But was he ready to embrace the truth, to traverse the landscape of past emotions? As the weight of Mark's revelation hung in the air, Jake knew that the true journey was just beginning, and the hardest part would be facing the beat that pulsed with every unplayed note still echoing inside. What awaited him on the other side of that door? Jake stood at a crossroads, the fading echoes of sorrow and the promise of a new beginning swirling around him. He felt a fountain of emotions ebbing and flowing, like the tide pulling away from the shore, only to return with relentless conviction. The locket was not just a piece of metal, it was a reawakening, a testimony to love that had transcended time and tragedy. "Jake, we need to talk about this," Mark urged, breaking the reverie that had entranced him. "You deserve to know everything, especially if it can help you heal." The urge to bring closure surged through Jake, an instinct honed over years of narrowing his world to avoid confrontation with his grief. Perhaps he had been waiting for someone, anyone, to illuminate the shadows he'd grown too accustomed to. "What do you mean things aren't like I think?" Jake probed, the tension tightening like a guitar string plucked at the wrong note. Mark hesitated, then pressed on. "Sarah was searching for a way to reconnect with you after the accident. She believed you both could be reunited, that love doesn't simply fade." A tremor whispered through Jake's core. The love they had shared was once his anchor, but it had transformed into a weight shackling him to the past that paralyzed him whenever he dared to remember. He could feel Ava's gaze on him, a steady balm that steadied his spiraling thoughts. "What if I could confront my own memories, reclaim that love?" he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. "Exactly," Ava affirmed softly. "You have the power to rewrite your story, to honor her while moving forward, not just living in the void." Jake took a deep breath, trying to process the possibility as a wave of recognition surged within him. The truest link between past and present was not just the sorrow that held him captive, it was the music that had always been there, waiting silently in the background like a forgotten friend. "I want to remember," he declared, his voice firm as newfound resolve coursed through him. "I want to connect. I want to create." Mark and Ava exchanged encouraging looks, each validating his awakening. "I'll help you," Mark vowed, his presence reassuring. "We can work through this together, Jake. We can fill those silent spaces with truth and music." Now invigorated by purpose, Jake let the shadows fall away. He turned toward the guitar, his long-neglected partner that had become a mere spectator to his sorrow. He lifted it back into his arms, feeling the weight of the wood and strings, a bridge to rediscovering his identity. It was time to face the truth of what lay hidden in the recesses of his memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the heart-wrenching. "I am ready," he affirmed, positioning himself at the precipice of his emotional landscape. Armed with the locket once more, Jake struck the first chord, a raw sound that reverberated through him, laughter and pain, life and loss. Each string vibrated with the weight of his longing, every note a gateway into the past, a chance to weave the fragments of love into a tapestry of experience. As he played, the music flowed, intertwining all the threads of his life, Sarah's laughter filling the gaps, the joy of his daughter's spirit lifting away the dust, and Ava's gentle reminders echoing through every strum. He painted a vivid picture with each progression, constructing a harmony that encapsulated everything, loss and redemption, the past and the promise of tomorrow. Tears streamed down his cheeks, both cathartic and liberating. This was his moment. He was reclaiming the sound of hope. The walls that had once enclosed him crumbled as every chord transformed into a declaration,
breaking through the silence that had stifled his spirit for too long. Ava stood close, a supportive presence, her own eyes shimmering with tears as she recognized the transformative power of connection being forged anew. "You can share this energy with others, Jake," she whispered, her voice imbued with pride. "This music can inspire, resonate, spark change. Your gift, don't hide it away again." In that moment, clarity washed over him like healing rain. He could not just reclaim his own past, he could share it, inspire others still wandering in shadows. Perhaps music, this profound language of the heart, was his way of forging a bond with those like Ava, those yearning for solace and hope. When he finally played the last note, Jake breathed out a sense of satisfaction wrapped in possibility. "I'll honor Sarah's memory by continuing to live. I won't close off again," he declared. "What's the next step?" Mark inquired, watching him with keen interest. As a smile emerged on Jake's face, gleaming with determination, he whispered, "I'll write a song. A tribute to love unbroken, to loss transforming into light. And I will share it, not as a hollow echo of the past, but as a celebration of life." In that, Jake found not just personal fulfillment, but a solid confidence drawn from the ashes of despair. He was no longer merely a rancher mourning a wife lost. He was a creator, ready to embrace a fresh journey, equipped with the lessons of grief and the music of hope echoing in his heart. It was with gratitude for the past and eagerness for the future that Jake stepped forward, the weight of uncertainty dissipating as purpose filled the air. As the music danced around them like fireflies in the night, Jake thought back to Ava's words, "You're not alone anymore." And he knew, deep down, this was just the beginning. This, right here, was the moment of transformation he had longed for, an opening that felt as vast and limitless as the horizon before him. Don't miss the chance to witness stories of personal transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference, trust us. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's journey. We want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.